PC1 in the FRS Season 5 here at the Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. This circuit is one where 29% of all Grand Prix here have been impacted by rain, so keep an eye out for it today around this clockwise 7-kilometre circuit, or 4.352 miles, 19 turns with 2 DRS zones, 2 detection points, and then, of course, massive elevation change all the way from Eau Rouge Radion up to Les Combes at the end of the Kemmel Strait. From there, it's all downhill. And this, of course, being one of the longest, if not the longest circuit on the FRS calendar, 7 kilometres in length for a single lap. Down the Kemmel Strait here, you'll be full throttle, and cars will be full throttle for 71% of the lap here, with low downforce required in sectors 1 and 3, and then high downforce in sector 2. So look out for compromises there in terms of setups between the cars. In terms of the tyres, we've got our soft, medium, and hard as per usual, but then the medium is 1.2 seconds slower per lap than the soft, and the hard is 1.7 seconds per lap slower than the soft. So keep an eye out for the differences in tyre strategy as well, because the soft is supremely fast around here. Let's have a look at some of the action zones then. La Source, a great opportunity for overtake, but also for shambles. Have a look to the real-life seasons of 2012 and 2018 and ask Charles Leclerc, Fernando Alonso in that second incident. Les Combes at the end of the Kemmel Strait is another area where you can have incidents aplenty, but also fantastic opportunities to overtake. Expect to see the cars side by side there as they head through the second sector and then down to Pouhon. Corner where, frankly, an awful lot of commitment is required on behalf of both the driver and the car as they will it through that fast left-hander, rather. So, let's have a look then at what's going down on the circuit, and we'll get straight on into qualifying and have a look at who's going to set the fastest time. And here we are then, into the session straight away, no messing about, and we are on board with Screeper at the moment, who's heading down through that second sector, just past Pouhon, that we had a look there in the track guide. My name is Daniel Gilligan. Anybody who was not here for the ACC, we welcome you. Anybody who was here for the ACC, we welcome you back. And alongside me in the virtual commentary box, joining us now after their own race, is Dr. Stark. Stark, how on earth are you, sir?
Pretty good, yeah. My race in Div 3 went pretty well, and I'm looking forward to this Div 1 race here, where they'll actually show me how to drive Spa fast.
Excellent. Well, good stuff. I can't help but feel it might be a little bit sort of too little too late, though, if your race is already done. You can't expect them to show you how to drive fast after the event. That's not going to be great. And speaking of not great, that's not a fantastic line to start the lap with, unless, of course, it's not invalidated. No, it hasn't. Okay, it looked like to me that Screeper had gone all four wheels off the circuit, but it looks like they are safe for now. So through La Source they go, and let's ride on board with Screeper for a lap of Spa-Francorchamps then. So through La Source we've already gone, down the old start-finish straight now then, and then through Eau Rouge, up the hill, and then over the top of Radion. Now, after this then, the drivers get to briefly breathe for a moment as they power on down the Kemmel Strait. In top gear here, hitting speeds in excess of 325 kilometers an hour before they then jump down onto the brakes, dive down the gears into fourth, and then through Les Combes. We've got the right, left, right, and then down the hill. And then through this corner here, which I just call Understeer Corner. I'm forgetting the corner names of all the corners around here, but this one I do know the name of. It's No Name Corner. The left-hander here, as we then feed on through there. We're still on the grass, heading down towards Pouhon. And I don't feel like that's going to give them the most grip on the outside tyres in the world, but there we go. They've been able to take the corner well regardless, all the way up, bouncing off the rev limiter in gear 7 rather, then through the right-hander, then the left. These curbs very, very tricky and dangerous if you get them wrong in this game. Before we then head through the right-hander and now down towards the final part of the lap here. We've got a purple second sector for Screeper here, as the Ferrari just keeps offline and out of the way on the inside. Then up through the gears we go, up into the 8th gear now, and just full throttle now, all the way down to the bus stop chicane. Through Blanchimont we go, and now up towards that final chicane, and then onto the brakes, jam down the gears, into second, just feed the car through, up into third to short shift nice and early, and then a straight line towards the line. And as the only driver to settle up, it is fastest for Screeper so far, 142.7. Now, Stark, how does that lap time compare? As Cavino now puts in a time that is 142.9. How does that all compare to Div 3 without giving any spoilers away? Is that reasonably competitive?
That would be, I think, second or third in Div 3, as Knaptrack goes fastest on a 42.275. That's a lot more representative, I think, for what the front of the Div 1 grid will be doing, given it's nice and sunny, so there shouldn't be any problems with rain or traction. As we're watching Spike coming to set. Is he on a hot lap or is he on a?
I believe
lap?
so. I believe it is a hot lap. So up to the line they go. And a 41.9 for Spike. There we go. Brilliant effort from them. Seb, can we have the game being streamed? That's just a small complaint on my part. I do apologize, everybody. There we go. Now I have a much clearer picture. I can actually read what's going on. Fantastic. Right. So now that we've got that all sorted out then, and we've got sound as well. Sound is so underrated. When you're commentating over F1 cars driving around, it's completely silent. It's a little bit unnerving. So as we watch Fraser then finishing out their lap up towards the bus stop chicane we come, and into that corner we go. Now, how is this lap going to shape out for the AlphaTauri driver? Up towards the line we go. We'll find out in just a second. It is P7. So clearly, bit of a mistake around that lap somewhere for Fraser, or potentially just a warm-up.
Yeah, I know in practice races this week, Fraser's been setting high 41, so I think there's a lot more time out of the AlphaTauri there.
Absolutely, yes indeed. Certainly, in terms of what's to come, however, we can't possibly know. We do not have a crystal ball. However, we can tell you what has happened so far this season with a quick summary of the results so far. Currently, it is only 2 drivers in the field that have scored a win, that being Spike and Fraser, with them being first and second in the championship respectively, with a gap of 6 points between them. Spike on 62 points, Fraser on 56, as we watch now with Tim Alele, who's obviously just taken part in an ACC race along with Fraser and a few others in this division, swapping straight over to an F1 car and a different track. Up towards the line they go. Whereabouts they're going to put that Aston Martin? It's P9 for them so far. Tim Alele, bit of an update for you on them. They are currently 7th in the standings here in PC Division 1. And Dolphy, as we can see on screen here, certainly one of my drivers who I want to see do well this weekend, currently down in 22nd in the standings with a 14th and a 13th to their name so far. And certainly I think that's not necessarily representative of where they should be. I think they've had some bad luck and some... just generally not had the opportunities to perform at the level which they're usually accustomed to. So, given that they're set a purple Sector 1 here, we could potentially see a very good outing from Dolphy here. What do you reckon?
Yeah, the car looked absolutely planted coming out of no name, and they're giving him maximum commitment as well through P1. They're not validating, which is always good to see. So easy to do that on the exit of that corner. I've forgotten the name of this corner, but that looked fairly neat and tidy. It's easy to drop the rear on the exit as immigration has retired. And where is that? I think that's on the somewhere in Sector 2. But we stay with
That's just on the entry to no name. In fact, that's a bizarre place to have a crash. But there we go then. Immigration out of this session after setting a 43.6, which clearly was a banker time, just to get themselves accustomed to the circuit and the conditions. But unfortunately, they will go no further than that. So it's likely that it will be back of the grid start for them, unless, of course, Coral does not improve on their time. In which case, second last could be the potential for them. Max is currently in the pits, still has not set a lap time or gone onto their out lap. Back row is currently on a timed lap as well. So we'll have to wait and see how things shape out for them. Diesel is, I would imagine, coming back into the pits. Yes, they are. In the pits they come. And the Haas then is going to go up into there. We've also got Elliott out in the Haas as well. We've got 19 drivers filling out this 20-car grid at the moment. So we're just missing one McLaren currently. Cavino, the only McLaren representing at the moment. And Massimo Romeo has also retired from this session. Now, whereabouts are they on circuit? Well, if they are the Alfa Romeo that is currently on circuit, then they are going through to the end of Sector 2 at the moment and about to start Sector 3. So why they would have retired out on circuit, I'm not entirely certain. However, I feel like they haven't. I feel like they may well have done so in the pits. Charlie Chibbles has also retired from this session.
If I can just interrupt, Dan, there's going to be a re-lobby because strict corner cutting was set to off by mistake.
Right. There we are then. That would make sense. That would make sense indeed. And indeed, Harringzord has also has mentioned that there is a re-lobby coming. So there we go. So we will have to just fill a little bit of time, but that's absolutely fine. I'm more than happy to do so. And I'm happy that you're all here listening to me. Also, as someone's rightly pointed out, again, considering it is Super Bowl day today, or Superb Owl Day today, apparently, according to that person. I don't know. I don't watch American sports. Anyway, I'm very happy that you've all decided to join us today. Very flattered, and I'm sure that all the PC Division 1 drivers will be happy as well that they've got an adoring crowd. So around Spa-Francorchamps, then we've got this. It's, as we say, it's this sort of this compromise between top speed and downforce, because you definitely need downforce for that middle sector. But if you carry too much downforce, too much drag and dirty air, then of course through sectors 1 and 3, where they're basically just some straights in modern Formula 1 cars, then you will come a cropper, and it will be very difficult for you to defend your position, especially when DRS gets enabled down the Camel Straight. As far as a driver's input, though, I think it's only fair that we bring in Stark on this one. Stark, in terms of a successful race or lap around here, again, without any spoilers for Div 3, mostly because I haven't watched it yet, but were there any Shembles to watch out for? And as I'm just plugging the Harringzord Shembles trademark to Zord, I believe. Yes, anyway.
Yeah, so, mainly it's trying to avoid corner cutting. This is why we're having to change the lobby, because the track limits are actually quite strict on Spa, and it's very easy to pick up a penalty. So you don't want to be doing that. And mainly dropping it on the curb. So the inside curb to the right-hander of Lacombe, the first right-hander, is particularly lethal, and there's basically a 90% chance that if you venture onto that, you're going to die and end up in the barrier, which is not what we want to see. I've done it many times in practice. Often you'll lose a front wing or a wheel or both, in my case. And then just really make sure that your corner exits, you don't get any track limit penalties, and you don't drop it on the curbs under acceleration. That's the thing that you really need to do around Spa, and then trying to carry as much speed through the long corners as possible. And when you're setting up the car, it's really a case of really how much downforce do I actually need to make this corner, because DRS is so powerful as well. So you really want to, if you can get in a DRS train, you want to be in a DRS train.
Absolutely, yeah. So would you say it's one of those circuits that's similar to Brazil, where we might see a group in a DRS train just starting to disappear into the distance, and those behind unable to catch?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, unlike Brazil, the second sector is so hard to follow in dirty air, particularly as you're going through Puon and through No Name, where the car just naturally wants to understeer you off into a track limits penalty. The DRS isn't so powerful. The DRS train isn't so powerful in that respect, but you'll get an absolutely mighty Sector 1 and Sector 3 if you can pick up a nice toe. That's my 2 cents anyway. I'm more than expecting a Div 1 driver to show me different, that you can actually follow cars in dirty air through Sector 2.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, of course, and certainly I think that it's one of those circuits that does promote an awful lot of action, awful lot of overtaking. Certainly, I've learned in the past that you should not attempt an overtake on somebody through Eau Rouge and Raidillon if it's raining. That's my one piece of advice I would offer to the Division 1 drivers. And Harringzord also pointing out in the chat that the golden rule, don't go 3 wide into Lake Com. Exactly, and as I mentioned in the pre-show video that we showed off briefly before we jumped into qualifying there, before it was promptly aborted, we of course have we've got a history of Turn 1 incidents at Spa. If you want to go more recently, then it is of course 2018 and 2012 with Fernando Alonso a victim in both of those incidents. And if you want to go even further back though, 1998, with the incredibly large pile-up involving David Coulthard getting onto a drain cover or some such thing, losing grip, spearing off into a wall, and then bouncing back out and into the path of basically everybody in the field. So it's, and this hopefully does not happen here. That being said, commentator's curse is sometimes a thing in the FRS, and so I'm really hoping I haven't willed that into existence by wishing that it didn't happen. But let's also discuss some of the drivers then, whilst we're still waiting for this lobby to come back. So we've already talked about Spike and Fraser, of course, and then a couple of others further down the order. We mentioned Timalele, we mentioned Dolphy. A couple of the drivers that we should pay some attention to as well is Luke. Luke has been a bit of a dark horse so far this season, getting 2 third places in the first 2 rounds and then second in Azerbaijan last time out. So very, very good from them. Very consistent from them as well. They also got the sprint race. They got the sprint race victory, I guess you could call it. So they got pole position technically in that one as well. So it's good to see, I think, with Luke to see them finally getting into that position where they can fight at the front. They can fight competitively with the likes of Naktrack and Fraser and Spike. Naktrack, of course, very unlucky last time out to have penalties dished out to them for for instance, that weren't really necessarily their fault, and all that was going on in the shambles of Azerbaijan, and then of course that penalty meant they couldn't pit, and all these other things and bits and pieces there. So as it is, the result for Naktrack last time out still stands as a 14th place. And somebody has left our call. Is that Stark? It is Stark. Okay, I was about to throw to Stark, but that's fine. I'll just keep on talking. They've been very unlucky, have Naktrack. I feel like they should be much more in this championship fight than they are currently. But I'm sure they will get back into it as well at some stage soon. We've also got just behind them in the standings, we've got Booth as well, who's done a remarkable job in the Williams. Charlie Chibbles as well, who you have to feel sorry for after time out. They did have what seemed to be the best strategy of anybody. They'd pulled a blinder, in fact, going for a fresh set of tyres towards the end of the race, starting to advance at a rate of knots on the back of the top 3, that being Fraser, Luke and Naktrack at the time. But then the safety car, late race safety car, meant that they then were forced onto the same strategy as everybody else. And, Stark is back, I think. Well, unless it's somebody else who has joined me here. No, it is Stark. Fantastic. Yes, with Charlie Chibbles, got to feel very sorry for them indeed. They didn't start the first 2 races, but they did manage to get a 3rd place in the end in Azerbaijan. Could well have been a win had that final safety car not come out. But of course, that is one for the multiverse to decide and not for us. In terms of other drivers, so outside of that sort of top 6 there, Stark, is there anybody that you've been particularly impressed by so far this season?
Well, basically all the Div 1 drivers, they're just all faster than me. People who've been consistent. I'm drawing a blank here. Spike, Fraser, Charlie, when he's been racing, has been very fast. But even some of the drivers down the field who've managed to keep consistent and managed to get a couple of points in what is an incredibly competitive Division 1 field. When we were doing the eval practice and stuff, there was a group out at the front that were faster. I'm not going to say how much faster. I think that would be unfair and potentially spoilery. Even drivers towards the back of the Division 1 grid have been doing a fantastic job keeping it clean and keeping making some good overtakes and getting a couple of points and benefiting from mistakes in front.
Absolutely, yes indeed. I'm just going to give a little bit of motivation to the Div 1 chat here. Bear with me 2 seconds here, Stark.
I believe they're readying up now, so there was just a problem setting the weather and some other settings, I think, in the lobby. But
I see. We're fixing the result already, are we? Oh dear, oh dear. But good. It looks like, yes, as you say, they are starting to jump in. So hopefully we will get we'll get everybody into the lobby and we'll actually get some racing going on here because we've, of course, had some lobby issues earlier on in ACC, and now we're having lobby issues in F1. Now, F1, that's not necessarily much of a surprise, as we all know, but it would be nice if it did decide to work every once in a while. We've got some predictions in the chat as well. We've got Name is Secret saying if let's see if Fraser can go for the back-to-back race victory after 2 at Bathurst. It would be, well, yeah, certainly it would be back-to-back, in fact, because they won in Azerbaijan last time out as well. And lo and behold, the gods have smiled upon us, and we have the race back once more. It is sans sound, though, on my end. I don't know why that is. Never mind. If you get a moment to fix that, Hummersep, then that would be amazing. If not, it's fine. We'll just commentate regardless. So, we're just watching as we see the Haas of Elliot, I think that was. We're just reloading the screen. Yes, there we go. So Elliot's currently on an outlap and currently heading the field at the moment as well. Elliot, of course, the super sub last season, came in for Aston Martin from Division 2 and was able to get themselves up into a position of, winning in their first race in PC Division 1 as a super sub. And this time, representing Haas, the reserve team, the dedicated reserve team, if you like. Let's see if they're going to be competitive around this circuit as well. Spa, one of those circuits which I think is sort of universally loved, really, by the drivers. Perhaps not in the sense of all of its little foibles and tricks here and there. For instance, the death curbs that do exist around this circuit may not be loved all that much. I know that I certainly don't love them all that much. But it's a very, very fun circuit to just go bombing around. It has a good flow to it, and it produces some great racing as well, I think it's fair to say. Have I said anything wrong there, do you think?
No arguments here. I do like driving Spa. Yeah, I thought 2020 was better in my opinion because some of the curbs weren't as lethal, and I didn't end up in the barrier as much. But that's just a personal thing.
Absolutely.
It's worth pointing out here, just quickly, that the other Mercedes or Max will not be doing a qualifying lap, as they have a qualifying ban for previous incidents during the season. So don't expect them to be setting a lap.
Dear. Incidents in the season. I wonder where that could have possibly happened. Could it have been during the races at Azerbaijan last week?
Yes, that was one of the places that it happened, and also we carry points over from last season as well. So.
Well, fair enough. Good stuff. So, as we watch then, there has been a bit of a change in position on circuit. It is Charlie Chibbles instead who leads the way for the cars on a timed lap at the moment, with Elliot just tucked in behind the Williams driver now. And Charlie Chibbles, as I say, one of the standouts for me last time out. They've not had a race in Division 1 yet this season. And also another driver who elects to stay on the grass there on the run down to Pouon. It seems to be working for them, though. They've gotten a good turn in there, perhaps not bouncing off the rev limiter as much as we saw Screeper earlier on, but maybe that's not the way to do it. Who knows? So Chibbles then had a very, very good run in PC Division 1's race last time out in Azerbaijan. Of course, as I mentioned earlier on during our break, whilst we were waiting for the lobby to come back, that, arguably was in a position the best position rather, to win in the last race, because, of course, before that final safety car came out, they were catching up multiple seconds a lap on the leaders, and I'd imagine saving some battery whilst they were doing it as well, so be able to get a decent overtake done and get up the order. But as it wasn't to be. It was only third place, and now in qualifying here at Belgium, they set a time of 1:42.2. So that's immediately, based off of what we knew from the last attempt at the qualifying session, definitely up there. Perhaps not at the ultimate pace that we'd like to see, and big slide at the rear end for Spike there through the bus stop chicane as they come up towards the line now. Has that cost them? It certainly has. They're down in P2. So 1:42.2 for Spike and 1:42.2 for Charlie Chibbles. But you could, as I say, assume rather rightly that there is going to be some more pace to come out of these guys as the session goes on. Now, in terms of... we also have a raid from Cookie as well. That's absolutely wonderful. Hello, everybody joining us from Cookie Stream. And we've got a full grid for you. We've been able to gain a driver through all of the lobby shenanigans that we've had so far, or shambles, I suppose, the more appropriate word in the FRS. And now we're on board with Fraser. So, How about we go on board here, Hamasep? I'll talk them through a lap of Spa with Fraser. So, through this understeery right-hander here, and then you back on the power, try and V off the corner as much as you can, then chuck the car into no-name corner here, and then we've seen a lot of drivers, and Fraser does it as well, staying right out on the grass and on the AstroTurf there as they head down towards the entry of Pouhon, which they navigate brilliantly there. They get right up onto the rev limiter before changing up into 8th gear, and then through the right and the left, we've got Booth retired from this session as well. We'll find out what happened to them in short order, I'm sure. And then rounding off Sector 2 through the right-hander we go, and then it's a brief dash up towards the next corner. This one can be deceptively difficult at times, especially if you go side by side through there, or if it's wet and raining. And then up through this basically full throttle section now, all the way down to the bus stop chicane. We've got the Alfa Romeo off to one side there, staying out of Fraser's way. Up towards the bus stop chicane we come now, late onto the brakes, then about 50 metres away from the corner they brake, and then through the final couple of corners they go, then try and just keep as straight a line as possible up to the line. That's a new fastest time from Fraser, 1:42.1. So perhaps still not on the ultimate pace just yet. We've seen a 1:41.9 in the previous session, although maybe that was gotten with regular corner cutting exceptions made, shall we say. We'll have to wait and see. And it's looking rather good for Fraser at the moment, with their championship rival down in third. And Charlie Chibbles alongside them on the grid as well. Charlie, perhaps a little bit of an unknown quantity at the moment, given that we saw the great pace from them in Baku last time out, but some drivers can, of course, favour certain tracks over others. And, things are looking good for them at the moment. If this pace translates well into race pace, then we may well end up seeing Charlie Chibbles fighting for the win here as well. So, through Les Combes and the following corners for Dolphy here. And Dolphy in that Red Bull, as I said earlier on as well. Dolphy been very unlucky this season so far, I think, and a bit like what we saw with Hugh Sam last season. Results didn't necessarily match the pace and the talent that was on show, and so I think it's only a matter of time before we start to see Dolphy on that podium, getting the podiums in, and possibly some wins as well. But we'll have to wait and see, of course. So we've got to do... Oh dear, what on earth is that? That is an Alpha Tauri going so slowly on wet tyres with no front wing.
That has to be a bug. At least I hope it's a bug. You're not really supposed to... It's not changeable conditions, so you're not really supposed to be going out on the wet tyres. You certainly won't get a lot of grip with them. And Harry's in the chat is saying it's a protest lap. I'm not going to say anything. Stewards will deal with that, I'm sure.
If it's a protest lap, I'd like to know what the protest is. I mean, are they against the war in Ukraine that's about to break out or something? What's going on there? I don't really know. But there we are then. So they are going to presumably go back into the pits any second now. Yep, the AlphaTauri dot has gone into the pit lane. And we're now on board with Massimo Romeo, another driver who I think has had their fair share of bad luck so far this season and is looking for a bit of a win, either being an actual win or just a better result sometime soon. They, in the Alfa Romeo, set a new purple first sector. So certainly got a car that's built for good speed in a straight line. Now it's through this second sector. We'll have to keep an eye on them and see how well they do. Of course, track evolution will be starting to play a part here. And as they go through No Name Corner then, it's a good run down the hill once more. And unlike a lot of the other drivers we've seen so far, deciding not to use that grass and AstroTurf on the right-hand side on the run down to Pouhon, instead using the tarmac and then getting onto the curb as part of the entry. And then through the second sector, we're going here through the right and left-handers before we get towards that final right-hander of the second sector. And we'll have to wait and see. There's yellow flag in sector 1. I think that's someone letting someone by through on the exit of La Source, if the dots are to be believed. No purple second sector for Massimo Romeo, though, unfortunately. So they're going to have to make up all that time through this final sector here. The car comes through Blanchimont incredibly fast, as you'd expect from any modern Formula 1 car. I do also hope that actually is Blanchimont Corner. I'm not getting it wrong. But we'll wait and see. I'm sure someone will correct me if I am getting it wrong in the chat. But there we go then. Through up to the line they go, and Massimo Romeo goes 9th with that effort there. Not a purple final sector from them. So certainly through the first sector, unmatched. But it's the rest of the lap, they need to make up that time.
Yep, as we see Luke just come across the line with a 42-4, and a spike off into the barriers.
Oh dear, Spike, what have you done? Oh no, well, it shows, ladies and gents, that even the championship leader and reigning champion can come a cropper at the death curbs of Spa. And it really is a bit of a pot luck as to whether or not you get affected by them or not. You can do several laps and not have a single issue, as we see Screeper now setting a purple second sector. So clearly that car, very well balanced underneath them. Very, very good setup on that car. Whatever changes they've made versus the earlier attempts that we saw on board with them. Let's have a look for the rest of this lap then and see whether Screeper is able to pull something out of the bag here. 1:43.2 is their current time. And if they're able to get a decent run here through the final sector, of course, we haven't seen their first sector, but up to the line they come. And Screeper goes 7th place with a 42.7. Good effort from them there.
That's a very nice lap time, especially given that the track's going to rubber in a bit more and it's going to get a lot faster. We see Charlie on another lap. So nice and fast to Lacombe there. Car's looking wonderfully planted, and they don't invalidate on the exit of Lacombe down into the understeer corner, as I think I'm going to call it now, because I also don't know what it's called. Into no name, click the inside.
I feel like that one might be Bruxelles, but I don't want to commit to it without looking it up.
If you think it's that, I'll go with that. Interestingly, drivers on the exit of No Name choose to go on the curb a bit more, because you can straighten the car up and get a bit more power down without the risk of the car spinning, and it keeps the car a bit more stable there. As Charlie is invalidated somewhere in sector 2, that's unfortunate for them, but they'll be able to go again. There's 6 minutes left in qualifying.
So I've got the corner names up now, because I'm that much of a bore, and I want to make sure I get them right. So we've got then, watch this fantastic knowledge I've got here. So we're coming out to Chicane, as it's listed on the map, but we'll call it the bus stop because we all remember the old school Spa bus stop. We're seeing now Timolele going through Eau Rouge over the top of Radion and then down the Camel Straight. And up towards Les Combes. Now, I have said all of those before, so I feel like that's not going to be much of a flex, but Bruxelles is that understeery corner that's coming up, as we saw earlier on. Fraser sets the new fastest time, extending their advantage at the top to a 1:41.8 now, rather than the 42.1 that was previously at the top of the timesheet. And now down the hill towards Bruxelles we go, on board with Timolele, and they chuck it through here. Again, another driver where we've seen a purple first sector, but it's whether or not they can hang on to it in the second sector. That's going to be the real key here, to see whether or not they're going to be whether they're going to be competitive or not. So through Pouhon they go, managing to keep it inside of track limits as well, which is the key thing around a corner with as much speed and as much commitment required as that one. And then through the right and left handers here, thankfully for them, doesn't look like there's any phantom spins or anything going on there, as we saw for... Oh, I've spoken too soon! Spoken too soon, and I've cursed him. Oh, Timolele, I'm so sorry, but please don't reverse into moving car as happened in the race last time out. So that's that. Oh, I'm being told off by Ohei as well. Dear, oh dear. So Timolele then had a valiant effort, but unfortunately was not to be. And I think we can all agree I had nothing to do with that. So on board with Weltering instead then, and we will just ride on board with them through the Camel Straight into Les Combes. The Ferrari late on the brakes, using as much curb on the entry as they possibly could there, but I think just a bit wide of the apex, and they also have invalidated their lap. So we'll have a look at someone else. Track instead now, currently 5th place, and as they head through La Source then, let's ride on board with them for a full lap of Spa-Francorchamps, unless, of course, they happen to bin it, and I really hope I've not cursed them there. Anyway, through Eau Rouge and Radion we go then, over the top of the hill, that's Radion there, and then up through the Camel Straight we go. DRS opens up at the back of the Alfa Romeo, that Ferrari power unit shoving it down the straight, which of course is rising this entire time. It's all uphill right until you get here, and then onto the brakes, chucking it in to the right and then the left, and then through the right again, which finishes the Les Combes sequence of corners, and then down towards Bruxelles. Bruxelles, of course, very understeery, and you can see they're V'ing off the corner, going a bit wide of the apex initially, and then coming back on themselves before then no-name corner. And then down the hill towards Pouhon, where we will see that in just a second. And then look at that, committing there, just going down a gear into 7th, then back up into 8th as they power down the hill. And then it's through now Campus, and Stavelo is coming up in just a few moments' time. And so navigated Campus nicely there. Through Stavelo corner we go. And then we're coming up to Paul Frere corner as well. So through there we go. And now up towards Blanchimont, which is, of course, coming up, the site of Max Verstappen's famous overtake around the outside of Felipe Nasr all those years ago. It's funny to think that he's now world champion and not a baby still. But there we go. Up towards the bus stop chicane we go then, on board with Nacktrack. They get into the apex of the first part, then into the second. Up towards the line we go. Whereabouts is it going to be for Nacktrack? It is P2 with a 142.0. Fantastic effort from them. And Charlie Chibbles still in the pits with 2 minutes and 25 seconds to go. They're going to need to get out relatively soon if they want to get a time on the board that improves on their third place position. And as I say that, they do. On an out lap now.
Yeah, so we watch Spike who come through Pouon. They're absolutely committed. Only 100th down on the best time, as we see Coles retired from the session somewhere. I think that was in the pits. Cole subbing in for Aston Martin there. And is there any problems on the exit of Stavolo? No, there's not for Spike, as he sets a purple middle sector. So this should be a fast one, I think. Gonna predict like high 41s here for that one. As he comes down towards the bus stop. Chicane, do they nail a braking point? Yes. Do they get any oversteer, power oversteer on the exit? No. Looks great. They set a 41.7.
It looks so great. It was fastest. Fantastic effort from Spike there. We've got MJ Povey in the McLaren then, filling in for one of their drivers, of course, who hasn't shown. And I do apologise, even though I do comment on this every week. I have forgotten who the other regular McLaren driver is. I'll have to look them up now, otherwise I'm never going to forgive myself. But whilst I do that, of course, we're on board with Cavino, their teammate, their full-time teammate, the teammate of Immigration. No, not Immigration, they're Alpine. King Bart, rather. King Bart's the other driver who should be in the McLaren, but is not here this week. So, it's King Bart respected. Yes, Lord Volk, yes. I know. I'm trying. It's been a long day. I was at a party yesterday and all these things. Anyway, it wasn't at Downing Street, though. Don't investigate me, please. So it's up to the line for Cavino, and Cavino goes P7 with that effort, a 142.497. MJ Povey is currently one position above them in P7 now. It was P6, but we've had Elliott jump up since then. And Povey then on a timed lap, I believe, heading down now towards Pouon. And chucking the McLaren in, and you can see there that weight transfer, that sudden shift in the car as they just chuck it in there, and then down towards campus they go, and through the right, then the left, taking a healthy amount of curb each time as well, perhaps a bit too healthy if they ended up getting a spin. Through Stavolo they go. And then down towards Paul Frere corner. It's a purple second sector for MJ Povey. As the checkered flag falls on this session, Immigration is the first to finish their session and sets a 142.957 as their final effort. So they will be no higher than 15th on the grid. We've then got MJ Povey coming up now towards the bus stop chicane. Through that chicane they come then. How good is this effort going to be? It was a fantastic middle sector, but maybe the car was a bit more biased towards that sort of setup, and it looks like it may well have been. It's P4 for them. Fraser has decided to abort their lap and has gotten out the way in Pouon for a number of other cars, including their teammate, I believe, just behind them now, and Red Bull as well, potentially. We've got Charlie Chibbles on board with now as they come through Stavolo. Is that a purple second sector? It is not, no. So that car may well be quick, but it is looking like it may not be quick enough to snatch pole position here. MJ Povey then up to P4, it turns out, actually, as they come across the line. I don't know if I said that properly or not. Right, so we've then also got, who else have we got on circuit at the moment? So we've got Chibbles coming round the final turn now, up towards the line. Do they improve? They do. P3 for Chibbles into the 141s, but just clearly lacking a little bit of that speed in the middle sector. They've got a purple final sector, though, so clearly good speed to execute some overtakes. Over the line goes Luke and goes 5th with that effort, a 142.018. And now we have Major Castleman. We've got an Aston of Timalele as well. After my accidental curse earlier on, what do? It's P10 for the Aston Martin. Fraser's retired from the session. And now we've just got a few more cars just to finish off their laps. So we've got Major Castleman first of all. who's going to do that. In fact, actually, they're the only one who's going to do that because the dot behind them on the circuit is just continuing to revolve around, and it's an anti-climax in typical FRS fashion. It's Major Castman going into the pits. So that is the end of your qualifying session. We've got Spike, then Fraser, then Charlie Chibbles, Knacktrack, Luke, MJ Povey, Weltering, Dizo, Elliot, Cavino, Timalele, Screeper, Major Castleman, Massimo Romeo, Back Row, Immigration, Coral, Dolphy, Max, and then Booth. Booth, of course, not behind Max because they crashed out of the session before Max retired. So there we are then. That is the effort, and from everybody there, and Max is not last, as Harringswood rightly points out. There is a Mercedes at the front of the grid, though, in the form of Spike, so the team principal there must be happy about that. And, well, Chibble's pretending they aren't themselves an alien, says Lord Volk. So there you go. So brilliant effort from everybody involved there, I think. Some absolutely mega times from the top 5 in particular. 42 dead and then everything else in the 41s. What a fantastic effort. So we will have to now just wait for everybody to pile on into the lobby. And let's have a look at this. So Booth crashed out. Yes, that's absolutely right, Charlie. In the chat there. Pog, says Donald. I agree wholeheartedly, sir. Pog indeed, as the children say. And Flip saying, go Alpha Tauri. So clearly, no bias at all from them. And do you know, whilst we're waiting for the lobby to get started, I'll pose the question to the chat, because we talked about this on the ACC stream when we were just filling in some time, and I'll also pose that question to you as well, Stark. What do we think of the F1 cars that have been revealed for the 2022 season so far?
I quite like them. They look fast just standing still. I just hope they produce some good racing. I've been watching Formula 1 since the mid-90s, so I'm kind of used to cars not being able to follow closely, and I really hope the 2022 cars, you can follow closely behind them without losing too much speed, because, when you stood at the side of a circuit and you're watching cars go through, cops and through maggots and Beckett's and things like that, it's just, it really, beggars belief, really. You're watching them thinking they're going to slide off, and they just don't, and you have to recalculate what you think is, physically possible. These cars. So yeah, I like them, and I must say I really do like the Aston Martin green.
Yes, it's a much better shade this year. Yeah, similarly to you. I mean, maybe not quite as long as you. I've been watching since 2000, but it's one of these things. Even if you go back into races of decades before that, even as Fraser is stopped on the grid for the formation lap, they are not setting off, which is somewhat worrying. But we'll have to wait and see as to whether or not that's just them not paying attention, and then they set off in short order. It looks like they've left the grid now, so it looks like Fraser's gotten started. But yeah, if you watch some, I was watching a race from 1988 a few months ago, and James Hunt on commentary talking about the exact issue that plagues us today. Well, the air off of the car in front means that they can't follow each other, so they can't race each other properly, and they should get rid of all the silly wings and blah blah blah. And, this is what was being said 40 years ago. So, it's one of these things where F1, I think, finally moving in the right direction, trying to get raceable cars. I also, similarly think that the Aston Martin is a fantastic shade of green. It's a much better shade of green than it was last year, where it was basically just black until it was hit by direct sunlight. But at least we won't get any confusion between it and the Mercedes this year, because of course the Mercedes return to their silver arrow colours, allegedly. We'll have to wait and see for their reveal as well, of course. And it's I think, though, in my heart of hearts, I know, and I think everybody knows, the McLaren is my favourite so far, and I'm just looking forward to another season of racing. Even if they don't succeed in achieving what they set out to achieve in terms of getting more raceable cars on the grid, then I think it's still going to be a great season, because we got fantastic racing, even with cars that were so bad at racing one another last season. And even if they're the same as that, at least the cars look even more impressive and modern and cool looking now, and they're a bit shorter, which I know that everybody on the internet likes to moan about the length of these F1 cars that we're seeing on screen at the moment. So, with that time sufficiently filled, let's talk you through quickly some different strategy decisions here on the grid. So, P11 and 12, Timolele and Skripa have decided to go for the medium tyres. So has Massimo Romeo down in 14th. Immigration Coral in 16th and 17th, and then Max and Booth have also elected to go for a medium tyre start. Everybody else on the softs, we know from the track guide that the soft tyre has a big pace advantage over both the medium and the hard, perhaps more so than at any other circuit in terms of seconds per lap. So what are you thinking in terms of strategy here, Stark? Are those on the medium tyres right to do so, or would you have started on softs?
Personally, I'd start on softs, but it's looking fairly overcast there as we see Fraser just coming out to the grid. I hope there's not a problem with the lobby. But yeah, if there's any rain, mediums, the way to go.
Absolutely. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. Lights out, and away we go. And it looks like a good start from the front row, especially for Spike. Spike and Charlie Chibbles having a fantastic start here. Fraser looks to be crowded out on the outside of the circuit there. Charlie Chibbles goes the inside in the first corner through La Source. There's a big incident towards the back there with an with an Alpine rather, and a Mercedes towards the back of the grid. And then we've got now Charlie Chibbles tucking in behind Fraser. But Fraser takes a compromised line through Rouge and Radion. They're going to be vulnerable here. Down the Camel Straight we go. And Fraser immediately pulls to the inside. Tries to get themselves into as best a position to defend as they possibly can. But now Charlie Chibbles is going to have a bit of a draft here from Weltering, has been disqualified from the session. Charlie Chibbles goes round the outside and has been able to take the position from Fraser. They used that slipstream they got from Spike up ahead of them, and they're up into P2. Taking that position away from the AlphaTauri driver. We've now got some incidents further down the field as well. Look at this. We've got Luke here on board with them. They have been able to maintain position, so has Naktrack and MJ Povey just behind them as well. We've got, or rather MJ Povey has dropped a couple of positions since the start. They started in 4th place. Look at this now. We've got Immigration side by side with Timolele as they head into P1. Timolele then has to yield, and now it's Alpine 11 and 12th. With Timolele all the way off the circuit. What are they doing all the way out there? Oh no, oh dear, that's not what we want to see. Max has made a good start coming from the back of the grid up to 13th position now. Booth as well, starts at the back now in 14th. And look at this, the predicted pit stop strategy we're seeing now. That's very useful, but we want to focus on the racing, I think. So, through Paul Frere we go. And look at this then, Major Castman side by side with Cavino. Cavino gets that position there. And now it's going to be a drag race all the way down to the next corner. But I think if you look on the right-hand side of the front wing, there's no end plate on Major Castman's front wing. So that Ferrari is compromised. They're going to have to brake nice and early for this corner here just to make the corner. And now, there we go, straight into the pits for them. So then, after a bit of a manic start, it looked like we've got Fraser down a position. Charlie Chibbles trying to get onto the back of Spike at the moment. At 1.2 seconds the gap between the pair of them at the moment. Fraser only about a half a second or so back from Charlie Chibbles and gaining rapidly all the way down the Camel Straight. They'll be able to gain time on them here and potentially send one right up the inside, though not on this occasion. Look at this now. Max alongside with Booth here, I think that is, and they go side by side down the Camel Straight. Booth now moving to the outside, slightly ahead in the braking zone on the clean side of the circuit, and they get that move done on Max. No new position for Booth then, up into P13, and they, on those medium tyres, are going to want to get as many positions as possible to be able to make best use of that alternate strategy. Meanwhile, Fraser has closed in even more so on Charlie Chibbles now, who has lost more and more time to Spike as this has gone on, and I think that Fraser is thinking this is an unnervingly rather familiar sight for them. They've been caught up in some lap 1 antics. They've dropped some positions, and now, speaking of dropping it, look at that, there's Elliott round, and now a bunch of cars having to avoid them, and oh my goodness, spin turn just to get out of the way, and they nearly crash into both of the Alpines. Now they just wait off the side of the circuit, but look at that, Cavino all the way off on the circuit exit there of the corner onto the runoff area, and it looked like they may well have ended up hitting the stationary car off the side of the circuit. Weltering was disqualified from this race earlier on for parking in a dangerous position. It must have been that they were parked up and just waiting for cars to go by them, but then they were disqualified from the game as a result. So that's unfortunate for them. Spike sets a new fastest lap of 1:45.2 in this 22-lap race round Spa-Francorchamps. DRS has been enabled now, and Spike will not be vulnerable to it at all. He's drawn out a near 2-second gap now to the cars behind. And we've got Fraser now eyeing up Charlie Chibbles here. There's a 3/10 gap, 2.5 gap as they go through Eau Rouge over the top of Radion. This move is going to be done before they even get to the DRS zone, possibly. No, maybe not quite as early as that, but now Charlie Chibbles right to the inside is going to try and defend as much as they possibly can from Knack Track behind, but it looks like Knack is not going to be close enough. And now they head into the next corner then, into Les Combes. And no, it is not any chance on this occasion. Look at that, all the dirt that has come up onto the AlphaTauri of back row there. You can see the scratches and the marks on the cockpit and around it there, where they've clearly been following somebody who's been kicking something up into the air, whether that be marbles or grass or gravel or whatever it happens to be. But meanwhile, up at the front, things continuing to circulate as they were, and Fraser has already gained a good 3-4 tenths on Spike over the course of this lap after getting that move done on Charlie Chibbles. So Charlie perhaps not quite as pacey around Spa, certainly in race trim, as they were around Baku. This is not something that we're going to be wanting to see from them. We want to see them fighting for it and getting in there close. They're about 8 tenths, 9 tenths now, the gap between them and Fraser, and soon may well drop out of DRS range entirely. Stark, what do you reckon of these first 3 laps then?
It's been absolutely fantastic. It's very unfortunate for Welshing. I'm just reading in the Division 1 chat that they were having some problems with the game and it was acting like it was in a spectator mode, which is immensely frustrating for them. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to this Fraser and Spike battle, as Fraser's taken 8/10 of a second out of, as he sets a new fastest lap of the race, out of Spike so far, and he's almost in DRS range going to La Source. So they'll be wanting to dump as much DRS as possible down this straight through Eau Rouge if they're feeling brave, so they can get DRS down the Camel Straight, because it's worth about half a second a lap or something like that.
Well, they will have it this time because they came through there with that gap that they needed on Spike, and it looks like could this be perhaps that Spike has dumped a lot of ERS in the first few laps to try and break the DRS toe an advantage, which is why we saw that 2-second gap as Dolphy goes up the inside of back row there. Red Bull versus AlphaTauri, and well, there we go. Relatively simple move done there. But anyway, back to the point. So Spike tried to just get off in a hurry as Dizo makes a move on Cavino now. Up into Les Combes we go. That's a horrible camera angle, but there we go. We'll take it anyway. We saw the move happen. That's good. But yeah, Spike tried to get away, and whoa, big twitch there for Cavino coming out of the exit of that corner. But Spike tried to just break away from the pack as much as they possibly could. Got that 2-second gap, but then Fraser getting back by Charlie Chibbles has allowed them to really get the hammer down, and then perhaps Spike, without as much or even any ERS possibly to play with, may well have then ended up getting themselves in a spot of bother potentially. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, what are we thinking?
Although, we also don't, we don't know how much ERS that Spike is using. We also don't know how much they're taking out of the tyres, because it is looking rather overcast. And we've seen in other races, again, no spoilers, that rain is a very big threat around Spa, as is the case in the real life F1 races. As Backrow's having a look on the back of Dolphy, as I say this, it'll be smart for them just to wait for the DRS zone down the Camel Straight, I think. But yeah, absolutely fantastic racing so far, and so close up at the front. This is what we love to see.
Absolutely, and now that gap is coming down and down and down before they even get to Eau Rouge and Radion. Over the top of Radion we come now, and the gap is now less than 0.3 of a second before they even hit the DRS zone, less than 2.5 of a second. The DRS opens up now on the AlphaTauri, speeds by the Mercedes, up into the lead of this race. Fraser takes the lead from Spike, and now around the outside into Les Combes they go, and it's an easy move in the end. But I'm sure that Spike, if they're able to stick with them, we'll see this fight continue lap after lap. And speaking of fights continuing lap after lap, remember 1 lap ago when Dolphy got by back row at that very corner at Les Combes? Well, Dolphy almost had it their own medicine there, and back row almost back past them, but not on this occasion. Same with Cole having a look to the inside, but the Aston Martin just not close enough to the McLaren ahead to be able to affect a move. But all this while they're being chased and hounded by Elliott just behind. This is some fantastic racing that we're seeing up and down the field at the moment, especially if we have a look at the gap between, and like magic, do you know, Humbersap, I could kiss you. This is the exact battle I wanted to go to. Knack Track right up behind Charlie Chibbles here, less than half a second separating them for pretty much this entire lap, except for right at this moment here, but that will come back down again, I'm sure, with the use of the slipstream down this straight and then down through the first sector of the next lap as well. We're on lap 5, soon to be lap 6 of this 22-lap Grand Prix. At what point do you reckon, Stark, that we're going to start seeing, as Elliott gets a 3-second time penalty, at what point do you think we're going to see some moves to the pits here in this one?
Well, the soft tyres start to feel they start to resemble, Swiss cheese after about 6 or 7 laps. At least in my case, that might be very hard on the tyres. I expect Div 1 can probably go to maybe lap 8 or lap 9. If they're really pushing it on the soft tyres, the medium tyres will go to maybe lap 15 or something like that. And then you'll be wanting to pit for the other compound if it stays dry, but it's still looking rather overcast.
It certainly is. If anybody's able to give us some details as to what the weather is likely to do in this one, as Spike retakes the lead of the Belgian Grand Prix, gets their DRS open, gives it a little bit of an open close, a little flap towards Fraser there as they retake the position. And once again, Charlie Chibbles just able to keep themselves ahead. Now, this could be indicative of that low drag setup we suspect that they're using, because, of course, in qualifying, purple first and third sector at various points throughout the session, but never we saw a purple second sector. So things for them, as Coral now makes a move up the inside on the McLaren. Finally, the medium shod Aston gets by the soft shod McLaren. And, it's a battle that has been brewing for some time, but now, hopefully, they'll be able to get chasing off after everybody else. And with the exception of Major Castleman and Tim Alele, it looks like everybody's still within a reasonable gap of one another. So at what point... do you, as a leader in this race, decide, right, okay, I need to be going into the pits, but I also want to have as clean a getaway from those pits as humanly possible? So when do you start to think about pitting? Because, of course, you mentioned already the laps where it might well happen, but in terms of gaps, are we going to be thinking, well, we need to get ahead of Major Castleman in the pits, or we need to get ahead of P10? What's the strategy for somebody at the front here?
I think you really just
is in the pits, in fact.
Well, that's your answer then. Spike's coming to pits after lap 6. Personally, I'd be waiting for a safety car, but if the tyres are going, there's really no point in staying on old worn tyres when it's so easy to make a mistake around here. And the mediums are they're a much better race tyre than the softs here.
Absolutely, yes, indeed. They might well be slower per lap by 1.2 seconds, as we saw earlier on, but they certainly do hold up to an awful lot more punishment. As we see now chasing down the Kemmel Straight, we've got the the Alpha Tauri, Alfa Romeo. Good lord. Alfa Romeo and the Williams chasing on after Fraser. Fraser is now potentially vulnerable to an attack from Charlie Chibbles, given that they no longer are getting DRS off of the back of Spike ahead of them. But at the end of this one might be when... Oh, and Dolphy is retired from the session. Oh, the top of Radion! Don't tell me they've spun out and hit the wall there, not like Kevin Magnussen all those years ago, or even like myself in FRS Season 3. Yep, they have. That's exactly what they've done. Oh dear. Now that could potentially lead us to a safety car, but if it hasn't come out by now, I think we may well be safe. We'll have to wait and see until that yellow flag marker disappears. But as we see Diesel getting by Major Castleman there, look, all signs point towards... No, green flags, in fact. Green flags, and Screeper gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. So that will not be helping the Alpine driver in any way, shape or form. They and their teammate, Immigration, currently running quite well together, actually. Up in P5, B6, of course, we've had Spike pitting, so they are effectively ahead of them in this race. And shall we have a look in... Oh, yes, there we go. Fraser and Charlie Chibbles and Knack all into the pits, and I think as well Massimo Romeo. But Massimo Romeo may well have... No, they are going down the start-finish straight now. Okay, I thought they were just breaking up and trying to get a gap into the pit lane so they wouldn't have to double stack with their teammate. But as it is then, we've got these guys, MJ Povey and Max, continuing to circulate. And as it is, Spike is getting on by these guys in the pits at the moment. Whereabouts are they going to come out? Look at that! The undercut has worked for Spike, and it's worked then some. Look at that, 1.5 seconds the gap now between them and Fraser, and they're also going to get DRS down this straight, which Fraser will not get. Fraser will come under attack from Luke here, who has, I think, pulled a masterstroke here, getting the undercut themselves, going in the same lap as Spike did, and now they get the move done. Spike, and now Charlie Chibbles and Luke get by Fraser. This is an absolute worst case scenario for Fraser.
Absolutely, but at least Luke and Charlie are looking fairly racy on those tyres. Though Charlie's on soft tyres, by the looks of it. That's a bit strange.
That's an interesting choice. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and Fraser's on soft tyres as well. That's a very big surprise.
These absolute mad lads. as the youth would say. Right, okay. Well, that's so it really is worst case scenario for Fraser. Then, not only have they lost 2 positions and lost 1.5 seconds to their championship rival and their main rival in this race, but they've also gone onto the wrong set of tyres. Unless, of course, they know something that we don't. Perhaps there's rain that's going to be coming here before the end of a second soft tyre stint. And then that soft tyre rubber, because it is so much quicker over a single lap, might then end up helping them out if they're able to get the moves done and then get up the road ahead and away of the people around them. As it is, look at this now. Charlie Gibbles up the inside of Luke, or at least he's thinking about it. He then slows up on the second apex. That stops Fraser from going through. Spike sets a new fastest lap of the Grand Prix. And now they power on down towards La Source. It's going to be a big old drag race now, all the way down to Les Combes. And it looks like Charlie Gibbles has taken La Source better than Luke up ahead. Luke is chasing on after the Alpine just ahead of him. I think that may well be Screeper, or possibly, well, it was Screeper or Immigration, let's be honest. It is Immigration. So Immigration then is going to have no DRS, but all these cars behind will have DRS. They're all going to be fighting. Look at this, they're going to box each other in. Look at this, they're going to go 3, 4 wide. Don't do anything bad, don't have a mistake, don't have a crash. What is this camera angle? No, and now Charlie Gibbles gets by Luke. It's side by side through corner after corner after corner, and he gets it done. What a brilliant move from Charlie Gibbles. And now, having a sniff up the inside is Fraser. He takes advantage into Bruxelles up the inside, and now they head down towards No Name Corner, and he's by Luke as well. Brilliant racing from these guys.
Fantastic corners there from Charlie and Fraser, and great battles side by side through there. It's not easy to do, especially with how fast the cars are moving, but absolutely fantastic move there from Fraser and Charlie, getting past the medium tyre runners there. It's going to be crucial for their race because they need to close up behind Spike and Screeper, really, if they've got any shot, and pray that there's another safety car, or there's a safety car, should I say, or some changeable weather. So you've got a yellow flag in sector 2. It's one of the Hassans going slowly.
I think that might be Elliott. They've just been passed by Major Castleman, and that would correspond with the dot on the map. So, yep, that's unfortunate for them. Another incident for Elliott, and it's looking less like super sub and more like average sub at the moment. But hey ho, there we go. And at least they're having fun. That's the main thing. So, Nactrack then getting a move done as well, getting by Immigration there. We saw briefly on our screens, but now having a look at Coral, who's chasing down after Max, and Fraser continues to chase down after Charlie Chibbles. Charlie Chibbles will not have the DRS on this occasion, though, of course, and they're going to have to hope and pray that Fraser is going to mess up something down the Kemmel Straight here, because something will need to go horribly wrong for them in order for them to not end up taking this position. DRS open then, and up into P4 they go. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Through into the right and the left hand of there, and was I imagining it, or was there a drop of rain there?
I didn't see it on my when I was looking at it, but I was looking at the I was focusing on the timing channel and timing tower. But it has been looking very overcast though for a good number of laps here. So it wouldn't surprise me as Charlie Chibbles picks up a 3-second time penalty for multiple track limits violations there. That's exactly what you need not to be doing. The Mercedes and Max there goes very wide. Don't be surprised if you get a warning for that as well, as they go through Pouon. Cars sticking with it in the dirty air as well.
We'll have to keep an eye on this weather situation then, because we've got some messages in chat saying that they think that they saw it. So Hey saying that they think they saw it or no, must not have been. Must have not been, rather. I don't know, whatever it was. That message says, and yeah, well, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see whether or not anything is going to develop here. But as you say, very, very overcast, very foggy. So we'll have to wait and see. Spike is now right onto the back of Screeper here. Former teammates last season, of course, in the Alpine, but now rival teams with Spike in the Mercedes, of course, in that W12, and now they power down the hill here. And are they going to be able to get the move done on Screeper before they even get onto the Kemmel Straight? Whilst that would be nice and get them by all the quicker, I don't think they're going to go for it. No, they don't. And so over the top of Radion, that's the camera angle we want to see. And now onto the Kemmel Straight they go. DRS open for Spike, and a very easy move on Screeper it will be then. So past the Alpine they go, tucking in front and then into Les Combes. They now have a 5.5 second gap to make up on Massimo Romeo to retake the lead of this race, or they have to just wait until Massimo Romeo pits. So as it is, then Max gets by back row there. Oh, no, not back row, sorry, Coral. But back row is also interested. Back row moves to the inside into Lake Com. They think about it, but there, Max is able to just hang it around the outside, put enough of a stopper on in that second apex to then stop the AlphaTauri from swinging by them on the undercut. And a good bit of racing there from the Mercedes driver.
It was very nice, very clean. There was a lot of room given there. That's exactly what we want to be seeing in Division 1 here. This Fraser's only half a second off the back of Screeper now. Gotta think that the soft tyres on the AlphaTauri there are going to make light work of the medium shod Alpine. But and then there's Spike only 1.2 seconds up the road from Screeper, so it's still all to play for here.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And well, as we continue to monitor this situation, then look at this now. Up the inside, potentially for Fraser. Nope, they think better of it. And then they tuck in behind the Alpine instead. Down the start-finish straight they'll go then, down towards La Source. And look at this. Screeper has been able to keep relatively close to the back of Spike throughout all of this. They're not going to get DRS off of them, but it does mean that Spike could potentially be caught up and within the attacking distance of Fraser once they get this move done down the Kemmel Straight, because as you say, Stark, it is a half-second gain or so per lap if you're able to get the DRS. So, DRS open now for Fraser. They move to the outside. They get by Screeper. Screeper is now going to have Charlie Chibbles to contend with as well. Is there going to be a second move? Are they going to get by? It certainly looks like they're going to try it. Screeper leaves some room on the inside. They massively compromise their line through the second part of the corner. Now through the third part and now down the hill towards Bruxelles. It's side by side between the Williams and the Alpine. The Williams sends it round the outside. And now it looks like maybe a little bit of wheel banging there as the Alpine understeers into the Williams. But now Charlie Chibbles is by. Brilliant move. Unfortunately for them, though, I've just noticed they have a time penalty. And that is not what they're going to want, in addition to all the other things that have gone wrong for them so far. So, through Pouon they go then. And Screeper is continuing to hold their position reasonably well so far. But it feels like, unless they're waiting for rain that they know is coming, it feels like they're just out on these tyres for far too long now. What are they going to possibly do by pitting at this stage? They're going to lose a good 20 seconds or so to their rivals. And they will be way back down the order. What do you think is going through the Alpine team boss's head at the moment?
Well, they're either waiting for rain or waiting for a safety car, which we didn't see it with Dolphy's crash, but it can easily come out. We've seen in other divisions, not naming any numbers. We've had multiple safety cars here, so it's a possibility that you have to consider. But I don't know if I base my whole strategy on it. Especially if they're losing so much time. Maybe they're not racing Spike and Fraser, but people down the grid like Immigration and Backrow that are in the latter half of the points. Potentially, are they really going to win back that much time when they switch over to some soft tyres or some medium tyres later?
Well, one thing's for certain, they can't go back onto mediums if they want to finish this race and not be disqualified, as Fraser goes up into the net lead of this race, ahead of Spike, unless, of course, Massimo Romeo is able to hold out long enough for this fabled rain to come. But we're going to have to wait and see as to whether or not that's going to come to pass at all. Fraser now, with those soft tyres versus Spike's mediums, may well have pulled the blinder if that rain is coming. If the rain does not show, then Fraser and Charlie Chibbles will need to pit again, and that will mean they will lose bucket loads of time to these guys that they're fighting up here at the front. That would mean then that Spike, Luke and Screeper, as it stands at the moment, though obviously once they pit it will be Knack Track, would then be on the podium in this one. Up the inside goes Booth, and then I feel like I saw the rain again there. Was that just me?
No, I saw something. It could be just light rain at the moment. And it might. We've seen in Spa, in past races, it only affects a certain part of the circuit, so that's what we could be seeing there. And the rain moving in from from Lacombe.
Let's go on board with Timolele here. Let's have a look and see, because it's through that part of the circuit. If we go on board with them, maybe just a little bit late for us to see, but we'll have to. So we'll just keep an eye on that. If we see a driver that's going through Lacombe, we'll keep an eye on them. We've now got Knack Track going up Screeper, who goes into the pits. Clearly, they have thought that the gamble has not paid off, and it's time to get on to those dry tyres. Will their teammate do the same? That is the real question. Immigration then, heading up through the final sector now. They're on the back of Major Cosmo. Oh, no, they've already pitted, in fact. They've got those soft tyres on, and they will be able to get some fighting done soon, I would imagine. We'll have to wait and see as well as to whether that undercut on their part has been successful versus their teammate, because they were running 1 and 2 together. Well, not 1 and 2, not in first and second, but they were running very close to one another on circuit. Not too long ago, but look at this. No, Screeper has gotten out well ahead. So they're now up into P10, about to be P9 as they soar past Max on the brand new soft tyres. Barely a contest whatsoever, especially when you then add DRS into the mix. So down towards Les Combes they go, and now we'll see a repeat of that, hopefully. An Alpine with the DRS open, chasing after the Ferrari this time, and also against the Haas, but it looks like the double DRS there means that it's just not going to happen. No, it doesn't. And look at that, there they go. Through Les Combes, the cars ahead are fighting one another, looking at different lines, and all the while, Immigration's just not able to get close enough. Will they think about it into Bruxelles? They certainly think about it. They do it, in fact, up the inside in Bruxelles. What a fantastic move. And then into No Name, they have the position on Major Castleman.
It's a fantastic move there. Bruxelles, it looks like a very good place to overtake. Usually, I only expect it to be, into the bus stop or into Le Combes, but not into Bruxelles. So it takes a lot of commitment there. And you've just got to pray that the car doesn't understeer, as it's so prone to doing. But fantastic move there.
Absolutely, yes, indeed. And speaking of moves, I think we're about to witness another DRS pass on this lap, because into La Source comes Spike and Fraser. And they're separated by just a half a second. Obviously, out of the exit of the corner, Fraser is likely to get just that little bit of a better drive because they've got those soft tyres versus the mediums behind. They'll have that better traction. But then up the hill here in the draft, in that slipstream, and then down onto the DRS straight. DRS opens up on the back of the Mercedes, and this should be another relatively easy move for Spike. So Spike retakes the lead of the Grand Prix and is ahead by the braking zone.
Yeah, I think those two are... They're just inseparable, aren't they? It's going to come down to who has DRS on the last lap, I think, to who wins this race. Shout out to Massimo though; they're still staying on their original set of tyres, and they're still leading this race. If not, in the net lead of the race, but they're still leading it. So it's a very solid drive from the Alfa Romeo driver there.
Certainly is. They're holding out for that rain, I think, but I certainly want it to come, but I don't think it's going to. And look at the amount of distance Immigration has put between themselves and Elliott after getting that DRS pass done. Just through Les Combes, it was zip, 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 and away they go. So unfortunately for them, or for I should say, that is a car that I don't think they're going to be catching back up anytime soon. Cavino is trying desperately to get by Booth, the McLaren having not the best of days, it must be said. And, it's probably a day to forget for them, really. Meanwhile, up towards the front, we've got this battle between Charlie Chibbles and Luke. Can we have a look at the penalties so we can see whether these guys are actually fighting on track for position or whether, yes, they are. So it's for these two, at least, it's 3 seconds each. So that way we know that they are going to, whichever order they finish, they will finish relative to one another in that position. But as it is, they will both lose position each to Naktrack, who is behind and has less than 3 seconds gap to those guys, and also no time penalties themselves. Screeper sets a new fastest lap of the race, unsurprisingly so, given that they have the fresh soft tyres on, and Massimo Romeo is finally overtaken. Spike retakes the lead of the Grand Prix, the actual lead this time, and not the effective lead of the Grand Prix. Sorry, my brain is not working today. It's then Charlie Chibbles that we're having a look at now. No, back to Massimo Romeo on those old medium tyres. And as they power down towards Pouon, they continue to have a relatively healthy lead over Fraser, given the age of their tyres and the pace of the car behind them. Still a second as they go through the second sector and behind another car ahead of them, which they won't have had to do for a number of laps now. And then, oh no, it's into the wall! Now, is that damage? Is that return? Oh my goodness! He's been hit by Luke there, and I think that was just Massimo Romeo reversing back onto the circuit without looking at what on earth was going on around them, and it's a full safety car! full safety car, and that means that despite that incident, Massimo Romeo might benefit massively here. Look at that, the Red Bull of Luke stricken and left in the middle of the road. And, I mean, I would hate to be in the steward's room because I think that's going to be a bit of a angry request from Luke to have that investigated. But there we go. Unfortunately, it happens in racing.
I think that's an understatement there. And it's worth pointing out that Fraser now and Charlie Tibbles, who pitted for soft tyres and they were praying for a safety car to come out, will have to go on the medium tyres, whereas Spike, if they wanted to, could pit for softs.
Dear oh dear, and now everybody diving in the pits. Fraser gets onto a fresh set of mediums in order to keep themselves away from disqualification. Charlie Chibbles goes for the intermediate tyre. Now, we haven't seen rain falling anywhere around the circuit, except for maybe those phantom raindrops that we saw at the Les Combes earlier on. And now...
That has to be a bug.
Are we sure? He looks very slow going through Eau Rouge and Radillon. Ooh. This is either an absolute blinder by Charlie Chibbles or worst decision of the race.
Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen in other races, this weekend that Jeff has had some very interesting suggestions for what tyres to put on, to say the least. So, either the rain is going to come down now, and it has to come down now, as we see another car out on intermediates.
Oh my goodness. What do these drivers know that we don't? Another driver onto the intermediates. It's Timalele. Could it be that the rain is coming down now? What a turn of events this would be if the rain is coming. If the rain is here, in fact. And these drivers all now need to get onto intermediate tyres. Could this have been the best strategic call from Charlie Chibbles that we've seen yet? Look at this! It is! The rain is down! The rain is coming down in Spa! Do not adjust your sets, ladies and gents. We have 5 laps to go in this Grand Prix, and I think it's going to end in an absolute shambles fest.
And Spike dropped it. Spike's down in P8 now.
Oh dear, oh dear. Spike, what have you done? Could it be that the older medium tyres on a rapidly wettening track have caused that? And does this mean now that Max can't pit because otherwise his teammate will be massively held up? His teammate, who, let's not forget, is fighting for the championship, Charlie Chibbles rather, takes his position at the lead of the Grand Prix, and all the cars come in behind.
Hamilton in Hungary vibes there, just watching Charlie Chibbles being the sole car going down the pit lane, the pit straight. Even if...
Dear, look at this, back row being held up by Fraser. Look at this, the AlphaTauri guys having to get a real shift on here. Oh, and Fraser has come out. Nat-Track has decided to go for the wet tyre. And Coral, no, Coral. Coral's gone for the hard tyres. Look at how wet it's become, how quickly it's become that wet as well. Oh, Coral, I feel for you so much. Booth also on the full wet. This is going to turn in, if this turns into a monsoon sort of race condition here, and nobody is on the right tyre except for Nat-Track and Booth, what on earth is the end of this race going to look like?
It's really surprised me just how wet it's become in such a short amount of time. It was only a lap ago that we were saying that has Charlie made a monumental strategy error, but it looks like they've made the right call here. And just how wet is it going to be?
I don't know if you can tell, but I'm quite excited. Oh, Timalele goes into the pits. If this is also for wet tyres, then all of a sudden, it's even Stevens once again. Yes, it is for wet tyres. It's also for a new nose, but the fact that they've decided to change the compound tells me that perhaps the wet tyres are the way to go, or will be by the time this safety car comes in. Oh my goodness, what on earth is going on?
Looking very wet there. It's definitely in the crossover point between intermediates and wets.
So full wets on Nat-Track and Booth and Timalele. Will anybody else dare to peel off from the train and go for the full wets themselves?
don't know. We need to see how fast Timalele is on the in fresh air, not in behind the safety car queue, and just see whether they can keep it on the road and how much grip that they have going around the corners. I think that's going to be
absolutely, and whether, of course, as well, they're able to catch that safety car queue, because if they're sort of keeping in a relatively similar sort of gap to them, then of course maybe the wets are not the tyre to be on, because if you can't catch a safety car queue, then that's not the right tyre. Ooh, look at that as well. It looks like to me, yeah, no, that's too much. And they've hit the wall. They're still going, but I think that maybe, just maybe, they've got, and look at this, Coral now having to admit defeat, goes into the pits. But I think those full wet tyres are just being heated up too much. I think that there's not enough standing water to keep those tyres cool. As a result, we may be looking at Naktrak and Booth dropping way out of the points here. As MJ Povey has left the session, I'm sure they'll rejoin in just a few moments' time. But yeah, that's a shocker, and I feel for them.
Absolutely, it's, for Timalele, it's worth taking the risk, because if the rain did come down a lot harder, they will be on the prime tire, to be on, with just 3 laps to go. It didn't work out. Sometimes you've just got to take these gambles, and sometimes you win them, sometimes you lose them. It's just racing.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And certainly the driver currently winning the gamble is this man, Charlie Chibbles. Was in contention to win last time out, but then late race safety car scuppered their chances and destroyed their alternate strategy. This time, a late race safety car has put them in a position to potentially win this race. And furthermore, because it is intermediate conditions, that means that there is no DRS. So suddenly the task of overtaking Charlie Chibbles on behalf of the likes of Fraser, Screeper, and etc. behind is that much harder. Big shout out as well to Screeper. Screeper has been able to take those tyres incredibly long in this race. Ended up having to pit, of course, but then has been able to somehow, through all the mire and apparently the Vaseline camera lens, there we go, that's cleared up, that we've seen so far in this race, Screeper has been able to get themselves into a podium position. Would be the first podium for Alpine since last season with Spike in the car. So it's looking good for them, looking good for MJ Povey as well in the McLaren, and Max as well, up in P5, doing much better than their teammate who's only down in 10th place.
P5 as well, and it's been 19 laps since that we started, but P5 from a qualifying ban. Absolutely fantastic race as the safety car is in this lap. You said that you were excited, Dan. I'm on the edge of my seat here with just 3 laps to go.
Excellent.
Who's going to win this?
I don't want to say anything. I don't want to commentators curse anybody at this point. I just want to see a really good race. And that's what I suspect what we will get at the end of this one. So let's wait and see. Charlie Chibbles is allowing the safety car to get away, though perhaps not as much of a gap as we would like. But that being said, it's a very short pit lane entry here in Spa. So into the bus stop they go then. And he's going to slow the pack up, is he? Or are we going to go straight away? It looks like they've gone, and Fraser's disappeared. Where's Fraser gone? Fraser went off the circuit and has now lost a position. Lost 2 positions, in fact, as they go down towards the first corner. And now Max and MJ Povey are right tucked in there behind Fraser. And up the inside of Fraser they go. Look at that. MJ Povey has gone by, and then he's crowded out Fraser, and that's caused Max to get by. Max is alongside. Max is through. Max is ahead of Fraser. Up to P4 now from the back of the grid. What an amazing drive, but now through a Rouge Radillon, they almost lose it. Fraser now retakes the position, and now up the inside goes Max, but now they're under threat from Naktrak as well. Naktrak on those wet tyres. How are they going to fare as the conditions worsen and things go down? Fraser is now down to P6, trying to go around the outside of Naktrak. It's side by side between these guys who were fighting for the win last time out, and now on. Oh, so close indeed. It looked like there may have been contact, but it doesn't look like it now. It looks like both cars continuing on with no damage, but Charlie Chibbles continues to lead at the front of the pack here. Screeper is in 2nd place, but MJ Povey is only half a second behind, and crucially, both of those guys have time penalties. So they need to get a 3-second gap built in these last 3 laps to MJ Povey. Otherwise, they will lose their positions at the top of the order.
Absolutely, they just need to go. Like, if they've got any ERS left and they've got any speed left, they just have to go. There's a brilliant stuff.
Big slide from Booth, big slide from them, and if they can keep the car going, that was a backwards impact, so unless they have retired, no, I don't think so, I think they're still going. Yep, they are. And look at this battle here. We've got Nattrack falling down the order. The wets are clearly not the tyre to be on. There's just not enough standing water. And now Spike gets up the inside of Immigration as they head down towards Blanchimont. And now that's another position gain for the Mercedes on their recovery. Now the gap between them and their championship rival Fraser is not quite so big as it was when they were down in P10 and Fraser up in P2. Fraser has recovered back to P4 now. Has Max just behind them, a second back or so. And now look at this here. Spike up in P8. They now have Major Castleman in their sights. MJ Povey right up the back of Screeper. They're going to make a move into La Source. Up the inside of Screeper, forces them out off of the circuit as well. And that means that Screeper drops down to P3 on the road, but that will be lower after the time penalties are applied. MJ Povey now has 1.4 seconds of a gap to Charlie Chibbles. That means they need to stay within 1.6 seconds over this lap and the next one, and they will win a race in PC Division 1. And it will be, I think, the first McLaren win in PC Division 1 as well.
Absolutely, and let's not forget that MJ Povey is a reserve there, and these cars look an absolute handful to drive up Eau Rouge and Radion. They're just understeering all over the place. They're still keeping it clean. This is absolutely fantastic.
This racing is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. And look at this now. Spike versus Back Row. Back Row is going to need to do a mega job here for his teammate to be able to give him as much of an advantage as possible in the championship table. There is 6 points, remember, separating Spike and Fraser at the moment at the top of the table. And at the moment, Back Row is doing the best job they can to try and elevate his teammate to the top of the standings. But as it is, if Spike is able to get by and able to start climbing even more positions, then things will be as they were. Things will mean that Spike will still be at the top of that championship table. And look at this up at the front as well. That gap is only 1.6 seconds. Charlie Chibbles is not doing enough right now. They will not win this race if it ends like this. And oh, goodness gracious me, Spike is going to have to do something wildly here to be able to get by Back Row. And then after that, it's Major Castleman, his own teammate, and then Fraser. And look at this, a mistake from Back Row going through Blanchimont. It means that now down towards the bus stop chicane, Spike is on the racing line, gets the braking done later and goes by the AlphaTauri. Brilliant move there from Spike. He leaves a bit of room on the exit as well, even though the AlphaTauri wasn't alongside on exit, but it was good racing from him. He now has to chase on after Major Castleman, and he has to make up 1.6 seconds on this lap alone before he then brings it home. Fraser has 3/10 to gain on Screeper. He doesn't need to fight him too much because, of course, that 3-second time penalty will mean that he will leapfrog ahead of Screeper in the standings. He may well even get by Charlie Chibbles. The gaps are so small between them at the moment. If we could switch to a leader gap, that's probably about the only effective time that we're ever going to have that. There we go. And now look at this. Major Castleman versus Spike. Versus Max even. Max is defending like his life depends on it, trying to keep the Ferrari behind. The Ferrari sends it round the outside. Will it work? No, not there. Now on the run down to Bruxelles, it's the Mercedes on the inside. The Ferrari on the outside is an understeery corner. The Mercedes goes up the inside. The Ferrari tries to get back up and under them. And no, Max continues to hold them off. That is allowing Spike to be able to close in here, and look, you can see Fraser continues to hold a 3-second advantage within Charlie Chibbles. Charlie Chibbles needs to get another 1.5 tenths out on Fraser just to stay on the podium here, and now things are very, very close indeed. Look at this, 2.9 seconds, the gap, 2.9, but it's 1.5 between the leader and second place, which means that MJ Povey is in the best position to win this race. Spike is incredibly close to the back of Major Castleman. Now look at these guys fighting constantly. It's now Max versus Major Castleman and then his own teammate Spike, the championship leader. They're going to need to try and get this move done. His teammate is going to need to try and block the Ferrari, but he's not done so. The Ferrari is now up the inside through Blanchimont. Blanchimont's coming now. Spike goes up the inside of his teammate there and goes up. No, that's Max. Max has gone off and he's been hit. What an enormous hit. What an enormous crash on the final lap. And Fraser comes across the line to win the Grand Prix. What on earth happened? We didn't see. Something happened at the front there. MJ Povey has dropped down somehow and has not won this race. Fraser has won this race by 0.09 of a second to Charlie Chibbles. Charlie Chibbles could have won this race if he'd had only 0.09 of a second.
I'm speechless. I'm absolutely speechless. MJ Povey.
I have no idea what I just watched.
That was absolutely incredible. It looked like. Where do we even begin? It looked like when Max retired, that Castleman either pushed them out or Max went onto the grass and then just lit up the rear tyres and spun into the wall, and they were powerless to stop themselves at that point. But what on earth happened to MJ Povey?
I think, judging by the chat, I think that there were no penalties with him, and that this is just another Codemasters glitch. So, for posterity's sake and for any future compilations, we're going to just redo that, okay? Now, coming around the final corner, it's MJ Povey who will lead home their McLaren and take the first win for themselves and for McLaren in PC Division 1, and that is a fantastic effort from them today. There we go. That's what we can use later on. We'll edit it in post. So, yes, as we understand then, on the screen it may well say Fraser won that race, but I think, judging by everybody's comments there, that MJ Povey has won this Grand Prix. Of course, Charlie Chibbles, you've got to feel for it's 2 races in a row now where they have just lost out by the absolute smallest of fractions when everything else seemed to go their way. And, well, would you look at that? It's 900ths of a second after penalties were applied. That has got to hurt. So we think then that the final finishing order is MJ Povey, then Fraser, then Charlie Chibbles, and then from 4th down we have Screeper, Major Castleman, Spike, Back Row, Immigration, Cavino, Dizo, Coral, Knacktrack, Timalele, Booth, Elliot, Max, Massimo Romeo, Luke, Dolphy, and then Weltering, who did not get to even start this race. Wow. What a Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. That's the reason why I love this circuit. It just produces such good racing. The weather adds that extra variable in, the little microclimate of the Ardennes, and it's just brilliant. It's such a fantastic racetrack, and we're spoiled every time we go there. I think it's fair to say.
Absolutely, and shout out to Max as well. They in previous races, the driving hasn't been as clean as you'd potentially like, but they did a fantastic job there. They really did. They were so unlucky. Just before the end of the race, they were, in for some solid points there, and it would have been well deserved.
Absolutely, yeah. It was a great effort from Max in that race, and for it to finish like that is such a shame. It reminds me an awful lot of Kimi Räikkönen. I think 2008 was the year. Ended up losing out in the fight to Hamilton, and then ended up in changing conditions. Went off the circuit, hit the wall. Lost the front wing, I think, or possibly even out of the race in the last couple of laps, something like that. Also, it's a race that happened over 10 years ago. If you want to get angry with me, then you can go learn your history, you filthy cretins. Anyway, Max, you defended like a lion, says Sean, and I think I would agree. If not for that incident there of just losing the car literally with 2 corners to go, it would have been driver of the day for me, but I don't think that we can give driver of the day to somebody who crashed out. I think that would be a bit too much, but Max, certainly honorary award from me today. I think driver of the day, though, I want to give that to... I'm not sure. I want to either give that to MJ Povey, Charlie Chibbles, or Screeper, but I can't decide.
They're all solid choices for driver of the day for me. There's not going to be no arguments for me there.
Well, how about that then? How about in the broadcast team, I say Screeper, you say Povey, and Hummersep says Chibbles.
I would have said Chibbles anyways, for the good strategy call on the Inters.
Yes, there we go. You see, the production team are in agreement, and yeah, that was some fantastic racing, everybody. I believe we've got a break week next week, so we will not be back to do FRS F1 next week. However, when we do return for round number 5, it will be at another one of my favourite circuits that also has fantastic racing, fantastic opportunities for weather to spice things up, and that's Canada. Enjoy, everybody. I have been Daniel Gilligan. I have been joined this week by the fantastic Hummersep in the virtual control room and the absolutely stupendous Stark in the virtual commentary box. Thank you very much for watching. Whatever you are doing with the rest of your day or evening, I hope you enjoy it, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.